Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, joined here on another Monday morning quarterback edition of our show with the one Zach Flash Celadonia. Zach, I couldn't have said the word quarterback in Monday morning probably any better. I'd ask how you are. I'm sure you're going to tell us. What's up, my dude?
I'm not great. I've definitely been better. It's bad whenever you put yourself in that Thanksgiving mindset. You know what I mean? When you're sitting there because your team just lost and you're going through well, at least I have loving family and friends and dogs. And that's where I was yesterday. I was in the Thanksgiving mindset.
Oh, man, be thankful. You know what? That's actually pretty good. I'm not going to lie, because there's a lot of bitching. I understand the Steelers are 2-2. That's what really matters. Wins and losses when you get down to it. You don't have style points. I understand that, maybe even the wins might not have been the prettiest. I didn't have a problem with the Raiders whatsoever, which just makes me question how good or bad the Raiders are. Browns game was absolutely ugly, and then you get to the Steelers and Texans 30-6 drubbing, which I guess the only thing we could really be thankful for is the Steelers are somehow still in second place in the AFC North through the first kind of quarter of football. You're through September now, and they scored the same amount of points that the Browns and Bengals did combined yesterday. Browns and Bengals only scoring 3 apiece in their games. Browns lose 28-3 to the Baltimore Ravens. Tennessee Titans won up after a bad loss to the Browns themselves, won up the Bengals and send them to 1-3 by a final score of 27-3. So if there's any positives to take, yes, we know Joe Burrow's hurt. I don't know if the Bengals defense is all that great. The Browns defense tried to keep them in. I know Myles Garrett got dinged. I don't know what his status was. That will be something we're going to talk about a lot in this very game as well, with the Steelers and Texans injuries. But before we get to all of that, we were talking just here off the air, how are we gonna structure this show? Because I don't even have any plays of the week to put up for the website. There are no highlights from this unless you want a 51-yard punt or whatever from Brad Wing, who hasn't kicked in the NFL since December 2017. That's about it, and that's not very good. But let's go to probably the biggest storyline, or the biggest thing that happened with this game. 4th and 1. I think we agreed this was the big turning point for this one, because, the Texans at one point here went for it on 4th down, and then you're like, hey, they didn't get it, and maybe something's going to turn around in this game, right? Steelers, they had their second field goal midway through the third quarter. It was about 5 minutes or so left, and they get a 3-and-out after that. So it's 16-6, and you're like, hey, maybe this team can finally pull off something here. They're down 10 points. There's still a quarter of football. They're running the ball a little bit better. Let's see what happens here. And you have 4th and 1. So you had 3rd and 18. Let's rewind this a little bit. There was a fumble on 1st and 10 from Houston's 42. It was the 4th play of this drive. So the Steelers defense had actually forced a 3-and-out. It's 16-6. Steelers get the ball back. They're approaching midfield. 2nd and 18 from the 50. They get backed up a little bit. Finds George Pickens, Kenny Pickett does, for 17 yards. Instead of just going straight up the field. Adam Archuleta was on the call with the color. He was right. Just go, and maybe you get it. I don't know. There was 5 red jerseys surrounding him.
Yeah, if we're going to give Deontay Johnson a hard time every time he does that, we got to keep that energy for George Pickens. I know he's the prince that was promised to the city in the receiver room, but that move had me screaming at my TV for sure, because it was I agreed with Archuleta on the call. If he just would have went straight with his frame and his run after the catch ability that's been on display this year somewhat, he probably would have just got the first down, but he hesitated, went back, and didn't get it.
Yeah, and that caused some problems for the Steelers, because now you go in a 4th and 1 decision where it really, if you're gonna punt it from Houston's 33, you have a 51-yard field goal try, right? or attempt. And I know a lot of people were questioning it, maybe. Brad Wing, not in the NFL since 2017. Are you going to have him go out there and hold the ball and all the mechanics? You're in a dome, but ultimately 16-6. When are you going to score a freaking touchdown? You got to get a touchdown at some point. 4th and 1, you should be able to get in there. Philadelphia, they got the little tush push thing that they do there. Other teams are mimicking this. We've seen the Steelers convert on these short yardage. They've been running the ball halfway decent to some point. I mean, Najee just went up the middle for 23 to start this first part of this drive. And then he had like a 1-yard run. Jaylen Warren was the one who lost the ball or on the fumble that was recovered. So you take a timeout. And the best that you could drum up was, let's put Kenny Pickett in shotgun. And I'm almost getting cringe-worthy here of anytime I see 83, not Heath Miller, Connor Hayward on the field, because then I'm like, what are we going to do now to try and outsmart the opponent? What are we going to do to get cute with this? Are we going to hand him the ball again and he gets stopped? Because, I mean, if you're going to have, as far as, let's say, runners, Zach, is Hayward, like, he's not the top guy. He's not the second best guy. I would rather have Kenny run the ball, so he's not the third guy I'd have in that option. Probably like
I think they outsmart themselves with Connor Hayward. It's like Connor Hayward would work well on a lot of other teams, but he's too good of a tool for Matt Canada to understand how to use. It's like he's like a 6-year-old with a complex iPad, like without child locks on it. Like, it's too much going on. And yeah, Najee was running well at that point. Why not just give it to him? Why not just run a QB sneak? I didn't have a problem with the call. I wanted them to go for it, actually, because you got to score a touchdown eventually. I realized if they hit the field goal, they have 9. They could get another touchdown or their first touchdown after that and then tie it up with the Texans. But during that point in the game, C.J. Stroud was throwing it around the yard, not really having a problem on offense. Neither was their running game. So for statement purposes, you want to score a touchdown. So I wanted them to go for it. I liked the decision to go for it. What I didn't like was the call. It made no sense. Going shotgun on 4th and 1. The Bears did the same thing in their game, actually, and they were getting torn to shreds on Twitter. So I don't know how the Steelers one went unnoticed. Maybe I just didn't see much of it outside of Steeler fans bitching about it, and rightfully so. But it's like Canada doesn't understand how to establish a flow. There's no offensive flow. You have good things happen, one good thing happen, and then 3 bad things happen. It's the classic, you take 1 step forward, 5 steps back. That's how this offense always is. And they had converted a quarterback sneak earlier in the game. And they outsmarted themselves, not only with the use of Connor Hayward during the play, which there was no use, and the call itself was bad, a pass on 4th and 1. And then Kenny doing himself no favors, escaping the pocket way too early, not needing to, because during the play you could see it was Broderick Jones's man, number 52, who was killing us all day. This guy, he rushes up the field, and Broderick Jones actually does a good job of kind of sealing him off. You can see on the TV angle, you get the full flash of the 77. You see Broderick Jones's full frame because he's pushing the guy out of the play. But then Kenny rolls right into it. And absolutely Kenny's to blame for that, but the call was terrible as well. And I think it's all connected, because Kenny's lost his entire confidence, and that's both in Canada and in his offensive line, because let's not act like the offensive line was playing good yesterday. They couldn't block anybody. They couldn't open up any lanes. Najee had a run or 2. That was it. And there's reasons why Kenny is leaving the pocket like he does. And I think it's because he just has no confidence, which isn't good. It's very concerning that he's seemingly regressing. And a big part of that is his inability now to see the field properly and stay in the pocket with confidence. Like, yeah, Dan Moore was out, but that shouldn't affect how you feel about your protection. Broderick Jones and him are pretty much a wash, and Jones has the higher ceiling. So have confidence in your offensive line and stay in the pocket and deliver a throw, because there probably would have been an open throw if he would have moved up in the pocket, but there wasn't. But again, tying it back to Canada and the play call, they didn't really give him a situation to win in, because they should have just ran the ball, whether it's with him or one of the running backs.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. The offensive line that's why we put it in quotes on the topics bar. Offensive. It was bad, dude. The play call there, Connor, and I just crapped on Connor, but Hayward, he was open at the tail end of that drag route. He was open if Kenny wasn't looking short with Allen Robinson for a touchdown at one point too. And so Kenny's missing some of this. He's seeing ghosts. I'm trying to figure out who to blame. And I do blame the offensive line for being bad. Not Nick Herbig. I'm going to get them confused all the time now. Nate Herbig, not exactly sharp. Mason Cole has not been good this year. It's one area where I'm already looking at next year, if you're not cleaning house, depending on who comes back with free agents and stuff, as to where your priority is. It's probably going to be a center at some point, I think, if they want to go through the draft pipeline, which is where the Steelers are more than likely to go. How much more capital are you going to invest in these different positions? I know some people were, praising sweet baby Jesus that, I don't like to see anybody get injured, but we wanted to get Broderick Jones on the field. And we want to see, you got to get him on the field. So then, and this, like, you're forced to put him in there to see that he's the guy. I felt that was coming eventually, just not in this first set of games before the bye week. You don't draft a guy 14th overall, trade up 3 spots to get him in the first round at a position like that to not play him. So eventually he's going to get there. And we're going to get on some of the rookies too. But yeah, there was no continuity with this offensive line whatsoever. Like, Cole just hasn't been playing very well. That doesn't help Suamalo. Doesn't help Suamalo that Dan Moore is on his left side. Cole's on his right side. So bringing him in has been like, yeah. And he's been blocking air at some point too, because it looks like it. And then sometimes we don't know. That might not be the assignment. It might be one of the other guys, and it makes it look like, Suamalo's left holding the bag there. James Daniels obviously didn't play in this game. Chuks Okorafor has had his problems. It's like, now you've got,
It's worse than last year.
Yeah. And you've got Kenny seeing some ghosts, and Kenny did some of this stuff. And I was thinking about too, like, in terms of this, like, I always blame Mitch Trubisky for having the happy feet and moving before he needs to. And there was a comment made about that, like, Kenny moves off his first read and everything like that. Man, he's been under duress like these first few games, and that's why, like, he's seeing some of these ghosts. The ghosts weren't there as much yesterday, but he was getting shook. This happens. I saw you on Twitter, dude. I'm not off a Kenny train whatsoever. Everybody's trying to be like, well, see, he's a bum. They should have got somebody else. Look what Brock Purdy did, and he was the last pick. Man, get out of here. We don't know who Kenny's going to be. Let's get to not even September of next season. Let's get to December of next season, 3 years through, before we see it. I mean, look what Aaron Rodgers presumably has already done with Zach. Zach Wilson's just garbage, and all of a sudden Zach Wilson was playing his, lights out in the Sunday night game. So, and I'm kind of rooting for him. I don't like to see any of these guys really fail, especially you've got so much immense pressure, especially where Zach Wilson, where he was in a New York market. Kenny Pickett filling the shoes of Big Ben Roethlisberger, a surefire Hall of Famer who, like, would always keep you in games. He was going to win. I mean, Ben gunslinged it around and stuff too. So we're going to go to coaching when it comes to what the blame here in a second. But I wanted to jump over, unless you got something else about this offensive line, because they've just been bad.
I was just going to say, Zach was going through it, both Zach Wilson and me yesterday, until Zach was given a chance, Wilson, not me, to play well on Sunday night. And that was really cool to see. I'm rooting for him too. Rooting for anybody really in the NFL who is left for dead and is able to show that they can play. It's always cool to see. Yeah. And the Steelers and Kenny are just in a really tough spot now, because I was happy to hear that the injury is believed to be only a 1 to 3 week absence. So with a bye week sprinkled in there, we'll probably only be without Kenny Pickett for a game, is what it sounds like right now. I don't want to speculate too far on that.
Yeah.
But if that injury had been worse, Kenny's played bad this year. Outside of the Raiders game, he's played bad. You can't get by just by making 1 or 2 throws a game and selling it off as improvement. I've been disappointed as anybody with how this year has gone for him. He's gotten worse, not better. He's flashed at times, but it's just not enough. But I feel like the Steelers definitely have not seen enough. because
Oh,
if
no.
we've learned anything from being fans of them for so long and following what they do, they're not a knee-jerk type of organization. They've held on to Matt Canada for this is his fourth season of mediocrity. So they haven't seen enough from Kenny yet, because at times he's done well and at times he's done bad. And this injury is just terrible timing, because you're coming off a game last week where he looks good and a game yesterday where he looks bad. You want to see some consistency in his play, whether it be good or bad, honestly. You don't want to be stuck in this middle ground and left wondering, well, do we go to the well now and get a new quarterback, or do we put more pieces around him? What do we do? First and foremost, I think you got to fix the offensive coordinator, because that's the easiest fix you can make. You can't just go out and draft a quarterback. You can't get Caleb Williams tomorrow. The Steelers still have 13, 14 games left. So you got Kenny. That's who you're playing with. And you could replace Canada, though. If you want to make a fix, if you want to make a drastic change, if you want something to maybe improve, you got to get Canada the hell out of here, man. He's terrible. He has no idea how to construct an NFL offense. He's never even been good in college, okay? And he is ruining Kenny Pickett. A lot of it's on Kenny, but we're getting to a panic point here where we're going to be too far gone. Kenny's losing too much of his confidence. He's playing too bad, and you're surviving on fumes here. There isn't much left to go off of. If Kenny comes back and picks up where he left off, which was bad, then they're going to have to look for a new quarterback. But if he comes back from this injury and plays well and is able to stack off of the Raiders game again, then you got something there. But we are in a critical code red here with the Matt Canada-Kenny Pickett relationship. It needs to be cut off. Otherwise, they're going to risk totally ruining Kenny Pickett's career, if it isn't already. I hope it's not, because I still want to believe in the kid. I've seen enough good to want to believe in him. But yeah, the turmoil is at an all-time high.
It drives me crazy too, because the interceptions he's throwing on paper, it's like, oh, this guy's throwing a bunch of picks, and like 3 of them have not been like, that the one yesterday was like almost like a punt. It was the only time they ever went deep too. And sorry, Kelvin Austin's 5'8" or whatever he is, and just couldn't get up there. And the other thing is Austin's fast, so fast that maybe that ball just didn't get to where it needed to be compared to anybody else. But I digress. I agree with all that. I got some more things to say about Canada here in a second, but he's not the only scapegoat here. How much of this do you lay on the defense? Because
a lot.
Oh, they couldn't stop anything, and they haven't really stopped anything. And I'm to the point, dude, where Terrell Austin, he was at Detroit, he was in Cincinnati. I'm trying to think where else he is. Where's he had a good defense either? And I think he's actually ruining quite a few people. Oh, you've got these studs that are winning like awards and leading the league and pressure and everything with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. And I know you're down Cam Hayward, but somebody there's been comments made like, where's Minkah Fitzpatrick been? Like, there's some serious problems. And, I'm somewhat bothered maybe, like, is Keanu Neal, there was a caller in on the post-game show with Charlie Batch, and I think Craig Wolfley stepped in yesterday for that too. And I got something to say about that too, because Batch actually admittedly said he didn't see like part of the game at all, like the third quarter where they actually had some decent offense. And then he's trying to answer questions. It's like, please. And it was kind of ridiculous. But one of the callers, not only are they already talking about draft picks and Caleb Williams, like, hey, we're only 4 games in. Come on. This team isn't ready to tank. They're not going to have a fire sale, and Omar Khan's not going to trade off a bunch of pieces or anything like that. But
they're not going to get Caleb Williams. There's as bad as the Steelers have looked this year, there's worse teams with more draft capital, more money, more everything. Caleb Williams is a pipe dream. Like, if they really have to get a quarterback, you're looking at guys like Michael Penix Jr. from Washington, or Bo Nix, or McCarthy from Michigan,
be like
maybe
32 years old before he gets in the NFL. I swear.
I'm just saying, like, Caleb Williams is so far, like, it should not be on the minds of Steeler fans, because that is as unrealistic as it gets.
And to add to that, it doesn't mean he's a fix. He could come to the pros and suck. Like, it's happened with enough first round pick. I mean, is Bryce Young lighting everything on fire right now? No. Like, CJ Stroud had a pretty good. Here, I'm going to make a comparison for you. Do you believe that if Kenny Pickett if they flipped spots yesterday, does CJ Stroud do any better with the Steelers offense than Kenny did? I don't think so. if you put Kenny Pickett in with the way Houston was play calling and playing against the Steelers defense, does Kenny do better? Absolutely.
A situation matters entirely, and that's a bigger issue at hand here that I myself am more concerned for than I've ever been in my life, and that is the Steelers organization as a whole. For my whole life, they've been football royalty, but you see games like this now. We've steadily gone from 1 or 2 games per year that are like what we saw yesterday to 3 or 4 to now it feels like a majority of our games are either us losing the whole time or we're able to win in the end somehow. Like, it's so rare now that the Steelers have a convincing win, and that is a huge issue. Like, I love the Steelers just win. Like, that's great. Like, getting the win at the end of the day is awesome, but there's something wrong with from the top down right now. And yeah, Kenny's a part of it because he's the quarterback. And I think that it goes beyond just Kenny. It's Canada, it's Tomlin, it's the Rooneys. There's an issue going on with the Steelers, and I can't tell anybody what it is. I can just say that it's infected the whole organization. At least that's what it feels like. You see the Texans, and they're running around fired up, like slapping each other on the head, like screaming. The vibes are just different. We don't see the Steelers play like that. It's super rare that we see them play with that energy and that swag and that like extra pep in their step. It just doesn't happen anymore. And I think it's because the players are starting to doubt coaching and they're starting to doubt higher ups, because that's the most sense that I can make of it, is that their energy is being like sucked from them, because there's got to be players on offense, some on defense, I'm sure, that are just over the Matt Canada experience, man. Our offense has been the same since Ben blew his elbow out. Since Duck and Mason Rudolph were calling the shots, the offense has been like the same every year. It just hasn't gotten better. There's been no reason to believe that it's going to get better at this point. He doesn't know how to put route concepts together, as I've already said. He has a lot of guys that go out, stop, and come back to the ball. He's not using guys in motion down the field. He's doing a lot of stop, come back to the ball. And they have playmakers who can be utilized in such a better way. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Fryermuth, Calvin Austin. These are good weapons, but Canada doesn't know what to do with them. He never uses play action, which is crazy to me, because play action always works.
Yeah, they did it last week, and you had to establish the run, which didn't happen, and they got behind, and they tried throwing the ball a little too much, and that was a byproduct, again, like I was mentioning, with the defense not doing anything. Like, how do you have literally Kendrick Green, and this, by all means, I must preface this once again with, this is not defending Matt Canada. I want to clean house with both coordinators right now.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't like.
I'm so pissed at Canada. I haven't been able to really like explain my feelings towards Terrell Austin, but the defense are at the top of my shit list as well, because hey guys, they're running and running back screen. That's what's coming. RB screen. Please stop it. They're so unmotivated. They look slow. They look like they don't care. It comes back to coaching.
Yeah, they always look out of position. And I was good with Austin coming in and being a position coach. But now you're 2 years into this now, too. And you had Keith Butler as the scapegoat. And somebody on here is going to comment and they're going to say, well, Tomlin's a defensive guy. And, Tomlin's the head of all this. This has got to change.
Tomlin's in trouble, too. We only have so long on the show. Everybody is in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally right where I was going to go, because the hell yeah changes. And Mike Tomlin was quoted as saying, hold on, I have it here, on he was asked in the post-game press conference if he would contemplate making any changes or if it's still too early. And here we are. I'm usually the guy, it's like, okay, we're only 4 games in. Like, let's not panic. And I'm not full on panic mode yet, because I realize the bye's on the horizon. I'm totally pissed off that the Ravens get to possibly play another backup quarterback. They got Dorian Thompson-Robinson, or whatever, Robinson-Thompson, what's his name, from UCLA yesterday
PTR.
with the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. Who I like, but that's his first start. The guy's just thrown out there. They had to elevate PJ Walker, who wasn't with the team in the offseason, and the Ravens, that's a whole other like rant, because they got to play Trubisky last year too. Whenever they play like Ben or even Kenny, you see things are different. But Tomlin says regarding hell yeah, we have to make some changes, man. That was an ugly product that we put out there today, so we're not going to do the same things and hope for a different outcome. What those changes are, man, we'll put together a plan in preparation this week. Well, you got a short week with a lot of injuries that we're going to go over here. You're going to probably have a backup quarterback that's in. those changes, I think, in a bye week, I mean, it's uncharacteristic of the Steelers, but we've seen Omar Khan, a brand new GM, and it really his first full year in that role, do some uncharacteristic things already. He moved up in the draft. He moved on from Chase Claypool, who was told to stay home with the Chicago Bears. They had the writing on the wall and like totally hosed the team for a draft pick. That ended up being Joey Porter Jr., and we're talking about names that should probably be on the field. Those are some of the hell yeah changes. You need Broderick Jones in there as a left tackle. You need Joey Porter Jr. to finally get in there. I'm tired of seeing Levi Wallace beat easily. Levi Wallace is good as far as like depth and whatnot, but you're not going to convince me to have him there as a starter. You can't leave Patrick Peterson out as who's your number one. It sure as hell isn't Levi Wallace, and it isn't like whatever 35 years old.
Peterson's playing like shit too.
Yeah,
Peterson's playing like a 37-year-old cornerback right now, and we need more out of that guy. He was supposed to be a big part of this defense and a big help to this defense, and he's playing like trash. And Levi Wallace gets by stat padding. You know, a lot of people say T.J. Watt stat pads, and no, dude, Levi Wallace is a infamous stat pad, right? And what would I tell you? 2 picks in one game the other day had people thinking, oh, maybe he's not that bad. No, he is that bad. He's continuously beat on tape, as is Peterson. The whole secondary is in a state of just it's exploding. Like I don't know how else to put it. You know, Minka, they're misusing him. I feel like we've rewound back to, I think it was Minka's second year here. For whatever reason, they stopped using him the way they used him his first year as kind of a deep safety, roam around the secondary and use your ball skills and your instincts to get the ball to, okay, we need you down closer to the box. We need you to be more of affect every play kind of guy. And they learned that wasn't a good role for him, because there's one season Minka has here where I think he got like 1 or 2 interceptions. Every other year he's done really well on the stat sheet because they have him in the deep safety roamer role. Well, they've been using him in this box role now and like closer down, trying to make plays in the run game, and it just, they're misusing him. And it's like they forgot that they've done this before and it didn't work. So secondary needs fixed. Yeah, they got to start playing Joey Porter Jr. That
yes.
is
that's a hell yeah change for me.
That's a hell yeah easy change to make. Get him on the field. Every time he's on the field, good things happen. Yeah,
not just Joey. I think Keanu Benton needs to be out there a lot more, especially with the injury to Cam Hayward. I understand you don't want rookies out there. There's certain critical games. They can make some major mistakes, but this is so bad that we've seen Tomlin do this. I mean, it took how long for Cam Hayward to get a starting role? It was, let's start cleaning house with these guys that suck. And unfortunately, it took some 8-8 seasons, and Steelers are still kind of in a rebuild. And will Omar Khan, like I was starting to diverge away from that with the Matt Canada thing. I don't care what Matt Canada does against the Ravens next week. Will they have enough balls to just send this guy packing? You can't even demote him. You're going to have to fire him. And you either bring in somebody completely new, or you promote Mike Sullivan, who has experience as an offensive coordinator at the pro level. I mean, he worked with Josh Freeman and was able to get like a 4,000-yard passing season out of him. He was able to get some of Eli Manning's best years out of him. Yeah, let's see it. I mean, he's worked with quarterbacks. Let's see him now work the other way. And then maybe these people will call into the post-game show, get their wish. They could get Charlie Batch to come. Charlie, you should be the OC. Man, now don't get me wrong. At this point, me and you might be able to do a little bit better with this, but I'm like, just, you know, thankfully this game wasn't the Disney Plus game with the Toy Story overlays and whatever, because it would have been at least we would have been able to look at the flying saucers and go, whoa, like there would have been nothing else going on. But hell yeah, it changes. I don't think Tomlin's going to move on from Terrell Austin, but what the hell is going on? Like you were saying, Minka is one of his best seasons, but Terrell Austin like worked with the secondary. They used to have 2 different coaches in the secondary. I don't understand what is going on back there anymore. Patrick Peterson, he'd be fine if he's a corner 2. I think we said this at the beginning of the season. You can't rely on him as a corner 1. They basically just stay on their sides of the field. We know that Levi Wallace isn't Cam Sutton, and he can't like sink back and play like a safety role. And I don't know that Peterson has the same kind of speed. I think that's what they were looking maybe to do with Peterson. He's using him a little more sparingly. Ask me who the nickel corner is, because I don't know. Are they ever on the field? Maybe Shannon Sullivan makes some plays. I know Desmond King's been returning kicks and hasn't been actually out there. So what other can you put King out there and get him more involved in this? I mean, he's primarily a slot corner guy, so I don't know how much more of a difference that ends up making. The inside linebackers, you got to have it along the. I saw this with the defensive line too, and I meant to say this with the defensive blame, and we didn't get to say it. You got Kendrick Green that's out there who is a complete bum with the Steelers, and he's making plays. He ends up getting hurt in this game, but they got guys they like literally signed off the street. And you mean to tell me a TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith can't get to the quarterback? And why are we only sending those guys? Why? I see these other teams send like a DB blitz. Of course, the one time the Steelers do it last week, Minkah Fitzpatrick gets dinged for a bullshit penalty call. We'll get to the officiating later when it comes to this game too. So, like, there are definitely problems on the defensive side of the ball. Containing the run has been a problem for a little while here. What do you do to fix it at this point? I'm not really sure. I don't think they would fire Austin, but I would hope that Khan, like, you may as well just do it. Like, could you do it this week? I mean, more than likely, you know, you're going to have Mitch Trubisky as the next guy up, right? Jump right into the quarterback conversation with this too. Just change it now. Screw it. You know what I mean? But I doubt it. We haven't heard anything yet. You got to usually make those changes. You usually hear them on Mondays. So there's some things that they could alter. They could change. There's some players that all of the rookie class, other than the other Herbig brother, who can still get some more playing time. They should all be out there. They should all be like, I guarantee you what's going to end up happening. We talk about the injuries piling up. I know it's going to remind me to come back to it because I guarantee you I know what's going to happen next with that. But the next quarterback up, you've got some people talking about, well, could Mason play ahead of Mitch Trubisky? No, they just didn't extend Mitch Trubisky and have him listed as quarterback 2 on the depth chart and have him come in. Of course, Mason was the emergency quarterback. I don't think they're going to entertain that this week. They're going to allow Mitch to go out there. They're going to game plan around him, which probably means he'll run the ball a lot more. Whether they do that effectively or not against the Ravens, probably not. Ravens are going to put 8 in the box with 0 pass rush that they have for the most part. And they're just going to do what they did to the Browns and just, you know, dare this guy to make throws that he's probably not going to make. And that's going to be the game plan there. So the next quarterback up's definitely going to be Trubisky. And you're one play away from him getting smacked around if, you know, by any chance they put Dan Moore back out there or James Daniels can't play, to Mason stepping on the field. And will they sign another guy to the practice squad and elevate them as a emergency type quarterback? You had Tanner Morgan in the preseason or whatever else. You know, that leads me to one other thing, dude. The Arizona Cardinals are supposed to be tanking. They're doing a terrible job at it with Josh Dobbs, who they just grabbed. He was with the Cleveland Browns. They just grabbed him from thin air and threw him out on the field. And their offense is so much better. And everybody's going to be like, well, see, the Steelers made the mistake. Well, Dobbs bounced around. The Browns didn't see any value in keeping him. The Jaguars didn't. Trevor Lawrence didn't see any value in keeping him. Connor's been banged up again even this season already.
Yeah, it's an easy connection to make, but there's been a lot of like changing of the guard of Josh Dobbs since he left. You have to think like outside of the box, not just be like, oh, Josh Dobbs, I wish we would have kept him. That was never in the plans to keep Josh Dobbs. They've since brought in many quarterbacks since him. So he's far gone from being a Steeler at this point. I get how people are doing that, being like, oh, we should have kept him with how things are going. It's like, you could say that about pretty much anybody that ever leaves the Steelers and has any kind of success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but more or less, my point is like coaching got him ready to play, and they went out and beat the Cowboys the week before, and they didn't just beat them in some tight, like, you know, what the Steelers beat the Browns with 2 defensive touchdown type performance.
Yeah, we're making it look very hard here. That's apparent. I think my whole thing is, you know, I'm aware that we got the bye week coming up, and we're still alive in the AFC North, and Kenny's coming back, which is great because whether people want to hear it or not, losing Kenny for the rest of the year would have been worse than getting to see him come back and try to do something. Because as I tried to explain earlier in the show, he hasn't played enough in the eyes of the Steelers, I'm sure, for them to just move on next year if he didn't come back to play. Him coming back to play is beneficial for the Steelers and for us as fans because we need to see if he's going to play like dog shit or if he's going to be able to somehow recapture like the Kenny we saw in preseason and the one we saw to close out his rookie season. Mm-hmm. If he's able to do that, we'll all feel better about him. So I'm aware of those things, but it's more like yesterday just felt like the straw that like it broke the camel's back because it's like we're living in Groundhog's Day. Like, I love that we're alive every year, somewhat in a sense alive, but it's just not a sustainable way to win football games or win championships in this league. Like, theoretically, could they scratch and claw their way still this year to, like, the 7th seed? Yeah, definitely. The AFC isn't as, like, strong as we thought, but there's just something that doesn't do it for me like it used to. Like it may be because subconsciously I see the bigger problems at hand. Like it's say they are able to make it to the playoffs. It's like putting a band-aid over a missing limb. It's like that if they're able to do something and make it to the playoffs, I have half a mind to think it's going to be credit to the defense and just the ball bouncing our way a few times. They're not going to just become this high-powered juggernaut overnight. And that's really why this loss felt so much worse than other ones that we've had, because I'm just so sick of it happening. And I know it's early, and I know they can recapture, or they can try to recapture good positioning in the AFC. I mean, they were the freaking 2 seed in the AFC playoffs rolling into Sunday, but now they are viewed as one of the worst teams in the NFL.
I laughed at that anyway.
It's crazy how week to week this league is, and it's a sad state of affairs right now. So I don't really know like how else to put it, but I know we're still alive, but it's deeper than that. There's like more problems than that.
There is, and I mean, one is I wouldn't be able to trust Mitch Trubisky to lead this team for another, how many more games are left? 13? Like, that just, people were saying, well, he didn't have a chance, whatever. Dude's had like 55 starts in the NFL, and we know who he is. We know
he got his chance yesterday, almost threw a pick right away.
Oh my goodness, dude. And like, I often wonder about that too, with like the next quarterback up type thing. I was starting to mention that with Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, does Kenny pick up like any habits or tendencies? It's like, oh, you got Trubisky there to kind of mentor him. And it's like, is that a good thing? Like, is he picking up the happy feet thing? Or is he picking up happy feet thing? Like, I don't know. Like, I know those guys don't get enough reps in practice or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I'm not sure where to go with that, to be completely honest. I mean, we'll just see how it works. We'll hope for the best. Yeah, going the whole year without Kenny would be disastrous, and the team's probably good enough to still claw its way to 500 the way this schedule is structured, provided somebody can play some type of offense and throw the ball and deliver the ball, maybe. I guess that's where people think that they'd rather see Mason, because we know he's got a nice deep ball. And I mean, I don't know what Mason's going to do here either, because there's some of these like guys that just go unchecked at the offensive line. They're just going to crush it. Like Mason can't even get away from him, let alone throw on the run. He's got a little bit of wheels on him, but he's not Kenny and or Mitch Trubisky as far as his mobility is concerned. So, that kind of leads us to the other thing that's like Groundhog Day is injuries, man. I'm so sick of injuries with this Steelers team. We just talked about Kenny. You lose your quarterback. We talked about, going back several years to Matt Canada. It's been like this since 2019, but they didn't have a quarterbacks coach. They bring Canada in and then move Canada to the OC to finally get rid of Randy Fichtner. And it's like this stuff is just like a cancer they haven't completely cut out or figured out. Bring someone from the college ranks. Don't promote someone internally or whatever be the case. And I was going to say, actually, as part of that, I'm like, can somebody call up the phone and see maybe Byron Leftwich is doing? At least he has maybe a little bit of creativity, and he just worked with Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, and maybe he's got something to contribute. And being a former Steeler, he's got to be like somewhere in the Rolodex in the contacts list of Mike Tomlin. But anyway, with the injuries, okay, we got the quarterback. You've already got James Daniels who sat out, Dan Moore. Now you're down 2 linemen. Hopefully you get at least one of them back. Maybe one doesn't return to being a starter, and you get Broderick Jones in there full time. Build some continuity. You lost Pat Freiermuth, and that one's like to me that's a killer, because it's going to be Darnell Washington, and it's going to be Connor Hayward to try and replace Pat Freiermuth. I was about to say, I saved it for this spot particularly. I'm willing to bet what happens this week is, if Freiermuth's out any extended period of time, let's say he lands on IR, they're going to go and like re-sign Zach Gentry, and he's probably going to start over Darnell Washington, even though he hasn't been with the team for over a month, because that's totally the style of the Steelers. You're going to have Connor Hayward starting over him. He's not the prototypical size of a tight end. And you're not going to have Washington just by himself. I got to see who's on the practice squad, if Rodney, what's his name's even still around. But
I think he is.
He might, but yeah, I mean, that guy's like, and he's like a guy getting like Washington getting the wind knocked out of him a play away from playing like full time. And I don't think I can do that. So like, this concerns me too with the Pat Freiermuth deal. and he gets hurt, and he's not even that involved in the offense as he should be. It's just like just another piece of this puzzle. You already lost Deontay Johnson. You've been missing Cam Hayward. Marvin Leal, I think, got knocked out. Was it like concussion protocol or something with that? And I'm not even sure they know where they're playing him either. To get back to the Austin thing, did you see him line up on the edge? He was on the edge, and then he was also playing defensive line, like in Larry Ogunjobi's spot, and then he was playing instead of Herbiger. And I'm like, where do you want this guy? Like, that's another problem. Like, this guy's second year in the league, right? Like, give him a job. Like, this is your job. There's too
many ifs and wheres and buts and whens on the Steelers roster. The whole roster is like that. It's just full of these guys that they have potential, and if coached the right way and schemed up the right way, they can be impact players for the Steelers. But we just can't see it come to fruition.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's troubling. I'm hoping that they can get the health. They got one more game. Like, the Ravens just played like a brutal freaking game against the Browns. So like and then they got to come to Pittsburgh. So they have 2 on the road. That's something that could possibly help the Steelers, but they're not going to be able to go 3 and out on offense and expect to contain the Ravens, who've had their own injury problems. They're eventually they chipped away at the Browns eventually is what happened. And containing Lamar for all of that. You haven't given me any reason to believe that the way this team has played. I mean, they weren't able to get to CJ Stroud. Like, that was the whole thing. They got backup offensive linemen, and with TJ and Highsmith even, you still couldn't get to CJ Stroud. Like, that is extremely disappointing. They got some quarterback hits, but the Texans had just as many, if not more, on Kenny. Some of those
it was nuts, dude. No excuse. Yeah. No excuse. You got to blame the players for that and the coaches for not getting them ready, because they should have. CJ Stroud should have been taken out of the game for concern that he was going to get hurt. Like, that's how it should have gone yesterday, because with the Steelers front and how their defense was built up for the beginning of the season and how they had done, like, there's no reason why they shouldn't have gotten to CJ Stroud multiple times yesterday. It was a complete failure. And I don't want people to think that I'm just like calling it quits on the season, because I'm going to watch, obviously, and I'm going to cheer along, and I'm going to hope for the best. Why, in large part, I want Kenny to come back, because I've seen what everyone else has seen. I know he's played bad, but at least when you get your first round pick, franchise to be quarterback back, you have this like hope and belief, as naive as it can be, that maybe he'll click back into place and we'll get rolling here. You don't have that hope with freaking Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. And I got news for the tank crowd. The Steelers would never tank. They're not ever going to do that. So you got one of two choices here. Either they're going to try and they're going to end up like 9-8 and miss the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky and mediocre quarterback play, or they're going to somehow Kenny will play better and they'll get to like a playoff seed and maybe even win a game. Like that hope at least still exists if Kenny plays. If not, it's totally dashed. And I'm totally aware of how bad he's played this year, but it's just the unknown, and it's the belief that he still can do well. With Trubisky and Rudolph, you don't have that belief. They can't go out and get Colin Kaepernick or Trevor Siemian, Joe Flacco. None of these dudes are going to make you feel any type of way or help us in any type of way. So it isn't that I'm a Kenny apologist or that I don't see how poor he's performed, but you need him to come back to just give hope to this season that maybe things will get right again.
This team, you were talking about the attitude and like the vibe as far as the locker room and on the field, and whether people lost confidence. They had no confidence in Mitch Trubisky last year. And as soon as Kenny came in, it provided a spark. Like, he's the leader, he's the guy, and he needs to be back on the field, hopefully sooner rather than later, because you see what's going on with Joe Burrow. Obviously, it's a huge component as to why the Bengals aren't doing well, and you risk the same thing. It's like they don't even have like a Mitch Trubisky kind of style backup, or even a Mason Rudolph kind of backup. What do they have? Like Jake Browning and somebody else.
Browning. They've got McCarron on the practice squad.
Yeah, they brought him back, and he didn't do so swell even in like, where was he? XFL, USFL, both. Like, he didn't impress me. He should have lit it up. He should have looked like Steve Young from the way people used to talk him up. But yeah, it's like now with them, it's like they can't even sit Burrow. You risk sitting Burrow, and you're going to be as bad or worse than if you play a hurt Burrow. Same thing with Kenny Pickett. So hopefully Kenny it's not too serious. I'm going to tell you this, my eyeball observation, having knee injuries in the past and seeing other players, just the way he came off the field, they immediately ruled him out. So they got to find out what's wrong with him, right? No problem with that. You don't want to risk any further injury, especially if it's something super serious. Maybe you can't put weight on it. But being a younger guy, I think he's going to, I don't think it was, we would know already if he was out for the season. So I think it'll be a shorter window. Hopefully it's just something, it got tweaked.
Yeah, they have a test they do literally on the field that checks your ACL. They know if you tear your ACL right away. They position their hands behind your knee and give your leg a tug. And there's something about the give that your ligaments give behind your knee, at the top of your calf, that they can tell if the ACL is intact or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because your kneecap, trust me, will go in places it's not supposed to.
Yeah.
Outside or inside. The only difference with the ACL, MCL, and even to that fact, Nick Chubb, I guess, actually got away with not having the worst case scenario too when it came to his knee injury. So just hopefully the sports science with some of these guys, they can come back a little quicker. Just to kind of put a wrap on this, it wouldn't be, I guess, one of our shows if we didn't bitch about officiating. And I mean, the Steelers made their bed without it. We knew at one point there's definitely some momentum and some shifts in this game based on just some awful calls, to be completely honest. I mean, one of them was right at the beginning of the game with Minka Fitzpatrick in a pass interference call that I couldn't see what the hell happened, and that resulted in the Texans keep extending. The defense was out there. How many plays was that actually run? Let me go back and look here real quick.
I don't know. I think they scored, air quotes, 3 times. So
yeah.
I mean, they got to 3rd and goal, I think, all 3 times maybe.
Let's see here. They said 12 plays. I'm not sure how many may have been negated by penalty here, but it just kept going and going and going and going. And that wears you out right from the start too,
Oh, yeah. Steelers put themselves down there, and I got into it on Twitter with somebody about this, and they're they could have just let them knock it down there. I'm like, yeah, dude, but penalties and red zone defense are a part of the game. So we made our own bed, but we'll take the help. You don't have to give calls to the other team. You don't have to call stuff that doesn't happen to make it worse on the Steelers. So, I mean, it's nothing new. Penalties help teams all the time. They hurt them all the time. But, the Steelers, they did it to themselves. But at the same time, it doesn't help getting the extra, salt in the wound from the refs.
Yeah, third and 10, or not. It would have been 3rd and 10 from the 10 with that, without the Minka Fitzpatrick penalty. Maybe they only kick a field goal. Maybe the game's a little closer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Steelers tried to get cute with it on their drive, and, Kenny moved around a little bit. They did get a first down on the first drive. 3rd and 1, Kenny goes up the middle, and then all of a sudden Kenny gets sacked by Jerry Hughes. Right after that is the interception with Calvin Austin, and all of a sudden it's downhill because you're down 7-0. You have another 9 plays that are run in this first quarter, so you're at 21 plays already for the defense. It wasn't quite a 3 and out, but it was still a turnover. I didn't have a problem with the long pass. I mean, going for it. Everybody criticizes, well, why don't they try and pass on a first down or a second down or take a shot? And then they do, and then disaster strikes. You know what I mean? But the other part of this too was you had Pat Freiermuth on, I don't know where it was. It negated a first down. It was
that was a trash call. They called offensive pass interference.
Offensive pass interference. I'm trying to see if I could find.
It would have been a first down to Pickens, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. It was before. It was near the beginning of the third. Was it third quarter or was it second quarter? Oh yeah, because they had some opportunities here to change the way this game was. It was 13-0. They get the ball back right on the opposite side of the 2-minute warning, but with all of their timeouts. And there was a defensive pass interference that was really bad with George Pickens and Shaq Griffin. And then Pickett gets sacked. It's 2nd and 5. He gets sacked by Grenard. They have to take one of their timeouts. Ends up being 3rd and 9. There was a defensive offside, so you get back to 3rd and 4 from the Steelers 41. And then Freiermuth is offensive pass interference, pushing back 10 yards, so you're not even getting over midfield. And you have a 52-yard punt from Brad Wing. That's what you have to look forward to. 41 seconds. All right, they only have 2 timeouts, and you allow a field goal. That's just...
When you break it down like that, you can see there were opportunities, and there were times the Steelers, even right before Kenny's injury, there were times where they were starting to build a little something. but it's just unfortunate because that's the world of sports and sports media, is that you can't always get people to listen to that kind of reasoning, being like, man, we had something going for a second there and then it was dashed. That's one of the issues with this Steelers team, is that there's just no consistency there. It's almost like too little too late. It keeps people like ourselves on the hook, and like we're able to see the good and the bad. But if you're not able to execute and finish those drives and actually score, then they mean nothing. It sucks.
Yeah, and instead, I mean, they should have gotten some points to get the ball back to start the second half, beginning of the third quarter. I mean, it was a run. Najee for 15, Najee for 4. Najee, okay, loses 1. 3rd and 7, a little pop pass to Calvin Austin. He gains 12, first down. Another little pass short, opposite side of the field. Now they switch fields. Find Austin again, 4 yards. Okay, but it's 2nd and 10. That allows Jaylen Warren to burst through 18 yards, first down. Now you're up to Houston's 23. Najee for 4 yards. Najee again off the left side of the line this time, 4 yards. What's been working? Middle and left side of the line. So you go up the middle again. This time you bring in Jaylen Warren, and he loses 2 yards. Now it's 4th and 4, and you end up kicking a field goal, and it's 16-3 instead of, you could have maybe even at least got a field goal to end the half. Maybe you're looking down a touchdown, and now it's only 13-10, and you've got almost the entire second half yet to go. That really just, along with the 4th and 1 play that's later, just the things, they just couldn't get any rhythm or any momentum going on any of this, just the 2 field goals, and pretty much in back-to-back drives, because the defense actually does their job. They force an intentional grounding with CJ Stroud, with TJ Watt breathing down his neck, and they end up punting the ball away, and the Steelers actually ended up getting it right at the Houston's 46. They were right at back in the middle of the field there, practically almost in field goal range. They just make and you see teams do this effortlessly, and you saw the Texans do it at the end of the second quarter. I mean, it was a 42-yard pass to Nico Collins. Like, those things are really inexcusable. It's why the defense needs to get fixed too. It's why everybody's PO'd on a Monday. Zach. I try to hold it in there, man. People said you're a lot calmer for a game like that. It's like, man, it's tough I can't get pissed off at everything. Like,
it's not, I am mad, but I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
It is weird. It's like a calmness comes over me when things are going that bad, but it's just because what else can you do but sit there and take it, man? And yeah, I was in a bad place yesterday. Like I said, I was in the Thanksgiving mindset. So I'm hopeful things will turn around. But we had to give it to the people straight. Things haven't been looking good, and it's an early season, but yeah, there's a reason why this show and others, I'm sure, are all going to have a similar tone to them of impatience and panic and what do we do now? Here's some of the positives. Here are all the negatives. It's what you're going to deal with when you come out playing like that on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, just if some of these things could have went a little differently. There was a face mask that wasn't called with Jaylen Warren.
I saw that, yeah.
You can call holding all day long, but if you find it hard to believe, like, no real holding penalties when you've got Highsmith and TJ Watt out there, like, there's just some things that befuddle my brain. But it's like just those couple mental lapses. Take one of those 2 back. Either Minka.
It's like so much went wrong yesterday, man, that I'm sure I came off this way to the listeners at times there, but I really couldn't even organize my thoughts in a proper fashion here, because you would say something that was like a buzzword in my head, like, oh yeah, I want to bring this up, or that, or like, oh yeah, Canada, Patrick Peterson, Kenny Pickett, Tomlin. Like it was a collection. It was a team effort. Everybody sucked yesterday.
Yeah. Except for maybe Brad Wing. And if he's the bright spot after having not played 5 years.
Good job, dude.
Good job. Thank you for those are the spots that I'm most concerned about. Like, this dude hasn't played in forever. Is he going to have a bad hold on the field goals? No, they scored 2 field goals. They got 2 of them. But I get it. Like, you didn't want to kick that 51-yarder there. How much more are you going to keep inching? At least if you score a touchdown, like, get it right on the 3rd down play, and then the 4th and 1, of course, disaster ends up striking. But if you're at least able to the touchdown, it's a lot easier with if it keeps going back and forth, I should say. and you're able to win the field position game, you're going to be closer to kicking that other field goal that probably ties the game if you convert that 4th and 1 and then can get a touchdown drive out of that. Unfortunately, they probably should have had it on the drive before as well. So, all right, man, got to leave it where it is. Got to put a bow on it. It's been enough. I'm surprised I'm not yelling and screaming and whatever. I don't expect any hell yeah changes before the Ravens. They got to lick their wounds and just figure out who's going to be filling in for some of these injured bodies. Then they get some rest, and hopefully the rest period here, we've got 2 weeks to correct all of these things. They did it last year. Of course, they got TJ Watt back in that frame. Maybe they get Cam Hayward. Cam Hayward's loss should not be understated. I mean, we talk about this guy as being like the second or third best defensive tackle in the entire NFL. And that's a large part of why they're having trouble stopping the run too. Of course, they have that problem.
We've got that to look forward to.
Yeah. So hopefully Deontay Johnson may be coming back. Maybe some of these things end up helping. But man, I'm not happy with the coordinators. And people are still going to be like, well, fire Tomlin. No, Tomlin's been around long enough. I've seen him win he beat Tom Brady with Mitch Trubisky and some grocery baggers playing in the secondary. Like, Tomlin does some amazing things at certain times. How he allowed that call on 4th and 1, though, I cannot absolve. You can't tell me they call a timeout and then say, oh, yeah, let's run shotgun. This guy is such a student of football. I'm going to leave with this, too. We haven't done, like, the bad take of the week type thing. There was somebody on one of the social media things that brought up the Terry Bradshaw cheerleader thing with Mike Tomlin again. And I absolutely have to mention it because it's like, well, this is what you get when you're best friends with the look, there's different coaching styles, right? I'd say Pete Carroll isn't the disciplinarian either. It's like, I know Terry Bradshaw goes back to Chuck Noll, and Chuck Noll will chew him out and bench his ass and everything like that. But what's Bill Belichick doing these days? You know what I mean? Like, he's the disciplinarian.
I don't think Tomlin and Canada are exactly buddies hanging out for drinks and bowling. I really don't think they're that close, honestly.
Yeah, but it was more or less like, Tomlin's more of the players don't play as hard because you're not screaming at them 24/7. There's no fear in the players. Like, he's just their pal. And it's like, no, I'm like, it's not really working for Belichick.
No, you're too much of a dickhead. You end up like Sean Payton, dude. Sean Payton's got real problems in Denver. I'm telling you, like, his method of coaching is like dated down the NFL. You can't bitch at these athletes, today's athletes. You know, it's a lot more give and take. And I think Sean Payton's finding that out in Denver right now.
Yep, you're absolutely right with that. And if you're just too much of a pompous ass, you don't last long at all, at all. So you got to produce. We know we're waiting for Tomlin to produce some things. Let's hope the Steelers could just get healthy. It is a divisional game. They're usually played tight. We'll be talking about that later this week, week 5 against the Baltimore Ravens. But until then, my name's Joe. His name's Zach. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Steel City Underground Podcast. Wherever you're watching or listening, we appreciate yins out there and just try and hold it all together.
Go Steelers.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go down the toilet drain or something. So until next time, we encourage everyone out there to, get my pen out. Be safe, be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.